What if I told you a janitor died with $8 million, while a Harvard-educated executive died completely broke? And listen, this isn't some made-up riddle. It's a true story, and it reveals probably the single biggest lesson there is about money. We're talking about two real guys whose financial lives went in completely opposite directions. And trust me, the reason why has nothing to do with what you'd expect. So on one side, you've got Ronald James, a pretty simple, unassuming guy who spent his entire life working low-wage jobs. But when he passed away at 92, he left behind an $8 million fortune for his family and for charity, a fortune he built just by diligently and consistently saving. Then, on the other side of the coin, you have Richard Fuscone. This guy was a renowned businessman, Harvard MBA, handled millions of dollars like it was nothing. But after some bad financial crises and a mountain of debt, he had to sell off everything and ended up dying with absolutely nothing. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that financial success isn't really about how much money you earn. It's not about your fancy degree or how smart you are. It all comes down to your behavior. And a story like this forces you to stop and ask a really fundamental question. What does it actually mean to be wealthy? Because, it's clearly not what we see on TV or social media. Come on, we've all done it, right? You see someone in a flashy car and you think, wow, they must be loaded. But the source material for this explainer just nails it. When people see someone in a Lamborghini, they don't really admire the person driving it. They admire the car and just think about how cool it would be to own one. So equating wealth with spending, well, it just puts you on a treadmill where you feel like you have to spend more and more to look richer. True wealth is kind of like an iceberg. The flashy car is just the tiny tip you see sticking out of the water. The real fortune, the massive part, is everything you don't see. The stocks, the investments, all the assets that are actually making you money, and the savings that are quietly working for you behind the scenes. That is the foundation of being truly financially secure. Okay, so let's dig into why we all handle money so differently. Why did Ronald save while Richard spent? Well, the answer is in our own personal histories. Your behavior with money is basically programmed by your life experiences. Just think about it for a second. If you grew up during a war, you're probably going to be more careful with risk. If you lived through insane inflation, you might be tempted to spend money the second you get it. And if you grew up during a huge economic boom, you might have a much more optimistic view of the market. All those things shape how you see money in a really profound way. It's like these experiences create your financial DNA. They build a set of beliefs that drive everything you do with money, and that outlook is incredibly hard to change. It doesn't matter how many spreadsheets or charts you look at, what makes perfect sense to you might seem totally nuts to someone else, and the other way around. And one of the biggest behavioral traps we all fall into is comparison. Constantly looking at what your friends or your neighbors or your colleagues have, it can make you feel like you're failing, even when you're actually doing great. It just pushes you to keep chasing bigger and bigger expectations, and a lot of the time, that's at the expense of your own happiness. Sound familiar? Okay, so if chasing what other people have is just a trap, how do we build real wealth? And maybe more importantly, what's the whole point of it anyway? Look, the most valuable thing money can buy isn't a bigger house or a faster car. It's freedom. The freedom to control your own time, to wake up in the morning and know that your day belongs to you without a boss breathing down your neck or endless deadlines running your life. This right here, this is one of the biggest drivers of actual happiness. And this path to freedom is laid out so perfectly here. First, it's a simple but super powerful shift in thinking. Don't just save what's left over after you're done spending. No, you save a chunk of your income first. Second, you have to get a handle on your desires. You don't need to buy everything you want. And third, when you invest, do it because you've done your homework and you believe in it, not just because you're trying to copy what someone else is doing. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You can have the best plan in the world, but it can get totally derailed by things that are completely out of your control. Success is never, ever 100% about skill. Luck and just plain fate always play a part. Think about it. Bill Gates was absolutely brilliant, no question. But he also just happened to go to one of the only high schools on the entire planet that had a computer back in 1968. That's like a 1 in a million stroke of luck. So because of all these outside factors, even a really smart investment decision is only about 80% guaranteed. That other 20%, that's just subject to the whims of the market and pure chance. What that means is you have to accept that failure is possible, And you've got to be flexible enough to change your path when it happens. And this is exactly why you need to plan a little pessimistically. Real economic progress often happens so slowly you can barely even see it. But a crisis, a major setback, that can happen at rocket speed with zero warning. Your plan has to be able to survive those shocks. Finally, let's talk about what happens when you actually do achieve that financial stability. A lot of people think the hard part is over then, but you have to remember, nothing is free. Every single thing in life has a price, and it's not always in dollars and cents. That nice car? Sure, it costs money, but it also costs you maintenance and your own time. That great job? It demands your effort, your focus, and those successful investments. You pay for those with your own nerves, with the anxiety and the constant need to pay attention. So to keep the wealth you've worked so hard to build, the job's not done. You've got to stay humble. You've got to cut down on unnecessary risks. You need to keep your money in assets that are actually generating income so inflation doesn't eat it away. And you always have to plan for crises. But also remember that they do eventually pass if you can just hang in there. It's a marathon for sure, not a sprint. So the ultimate takeaway from all of this is pretty simple. You don't have to be a millionaire to be rich. You just have to understand that real wealth starts and ends with managing your own behavior. It all really boils down to this one question. If you can't get a handle on your own desires, will any amount of money ever truly be enough?